If you are a content creator of any kind and you've been wondering why your videos aren't taking off, it's probably because you don't share your flaws enough. Or at least that seems to be the sentiment of many content consumers. Recently, I came across a TikTok of a young woman who expressed exactly that. In the video, she wore a loose t shirt and house pants. Her hair was wild and disheveled. The camera setup was undoubtedly casual, and the room she recorded in was definitely not a content room. I noticed these things immediately, but didn't consider it relevant until she started to speak.
A lot of y'all content not taking off or it's not creating impact because you're not being yourself. We want to see your hair balled up like this. All that, set the phone up, walk 50 feet back, come back and pick the camera up. We want to see you just like this with your moo on. And sometimes y'all don't want to hear it, but sometimes it's okay. You have to tell a little bit of your business. Definitely if you are on a divine assignment with God, you're going to have to tell that testimony, baby.
If you would like to watch the video I'm referencing, the link for it will be in the description below. She said that audiences want to see people like her, messy, real, and relatable. But what does it even mean to be relatable? Especially now in this internet age where almost everything we see is an ad or some other tool for marketing or promotion. The evolution of the internet has led us to a time where exposure is critical if you want to be successful. It's a numbers game, and the more you are seen, the more chances you have of hitting a jackpot. This applies not just to content creators, but even to everyday job seekers applying to as many jobs a day as they can manage. If you want to succeed, you may need to cast a wide net. In the case of the internet, we've seen virality achieved for numerous reasons. However, the concept of appearing authentic and relatable has always been a winning one. It makes sense that the more audiences can derive a sense of familiarity, the more likely a creator is to blow up. But her description of that familiarity was alarming. She said to be like her, as in, wear no makeup, don't bother to do your hair, and don't mind the clothes you have on. That's real, she says. Oh, and don't forget to tell your story. I'd like to speak more on what makes someone relatable or authentic because it does relate, but I'll stick to the topic of privacy for now. I'm really big on words, and I believe that every word used matters because it reveals the psychology behind what's being spoken. From what I'm hearing, this all sounds like a trap. Over the years, I've noticed an increased sense of desperation among content creators, and more people are willing to give more and more of themselves for engagement. I do think this has a lot to do with money getting harder to make in both the real world and online through monetization, but I also believe that it's due primarily to how the internet actually functions. Right now, the internet is our primary communication hub, and it has become so essential to growth in almost any area economically. Whether you're a large company or an individual, people are forced to use the internet to market themselves and simply be accessible, forcing older and local businesses to adapt to these new ways of connecting. Even the number of people turning towards content creation in hopes of financial independence has increased. Because of this, including the rise of the entrepreneur, influencer, content creator, gig work niche, everything on the internet is more intentional, curated, and polished. Everyone is selling something. With more people willing to make content and expose themselves for engagement, this creates a parasitic, parasocial relationship with content consumers who are conditioned more and more to consume internet content on impulse. What I believed is left unsaid is that the same people who are preaching to share more in order to reach virality or monetization are the same people looking to be entertained to fill their own void. While this advice may be framed as a pursuit for relatable content, the reality is that people want to see your dirty laundry so that they can judge you. It is a predatory desire to be entertained by someone else's misfortune. Her advice is a setup so that some naive creator will be less formal, less intentional, and therefore more likely to do something messy in 4K because they got comfortable. There is a larger issue here when someone cannot relate to a person because they look polished or because they show up as their best self. The girl in the video is essentially recommending that as a creator, you should display blatant or obvious signs of imperfection. Otherwise, audiences may deem you to be fake or inauthentic and therefore unworthy of their attention. My own theory is that oftentimes viewers can feel threatened when a creator shows up as the best version of themselves or an improved version of themselves. I've noticed that viewers will interpret intentionality as hiding something or showing off. Audiences can become especially triggered if they feel the creator is presenting too aesthetically. It's strange to praise messiness, but when the relationship between celebrity and audience is examined, it makes more sense. Audiences do not want to consume media that threatens their self-perception. This is likely a result of the Instagram and YouTube influencer era of the 2010s, in which it became imperative for aspiring creators to portray a certain type of lifestyle. Archetypes arose from this moment of time that still leave a negative impression in many people's minds. For example, the baddie. But this pushback is not unique, as it is an inherent reaction to consuming any type of visual media. Seeing images of people that we deem to be perfect will always have an effect on how we see ourselves. We can see an influencer in their sparkly living room using their new and seemingly expensive appliances, and we may begin to wonder what we could be doing more of. We start to feel that perhaps we are not doing enough. The reaction to this feeling has gotten so much more aggressive the past few years as more people struggle economically, with audiences actively lashing out at creators and celebrities if they appear too rich, too aesthetic, or if there is any other display of wealth or privilege. Now, if a content creator shows up looking too nice, they risk being deemed unrelatable. As it stands, how you represent yourself is everything, and the smallest aspect of your appearance can trigger an audience member's sense of inferiority. You don't actually have to be rich. You could have simply wiped down and tidied your kitchen before filming a cooking TikTok, but because your counters are white and don't appear disheveled as they might on the day-to-day, you are no longer real enough. Like in the case of Nara Smith, you may appear too perfect, and it may cause people to feel like you're showing off because it highlights to themselves what they do not have. So here lies the meat of the conflict, because the people want to be entertained, but they don't want the entertainment to make them feel less about themselves. People want entertainment to serve their ego and provide an outlet for their own frustrations in their lives. So yes, many people may desire realness and authenticity, but only if it is comparable to their own experiences, because they also may want their own clout, fame, and fortune, and don't want to be reminded of what they are not or what they do not have. So by this logic, what are audiences really asking of content creators if they hate to see them winning and doing their best? More specifically, why request people expose themselves unnecessarily for engagement? I can't help but think of these new concepts of lurkers, monitoring spirits, and the evil eye. On a conscious level, people are responding to the internet's aggressive landscape, in which a desire to be seen is preyed upon. The saying, "the internet is not your friend," is a proverb that almost anybody can recite today. The internet is not your friend. It is a coliseum full of spectators out for blood. The sad reality is that being visible online has become a blood sport, with many lurkers and trolls secretly wanting creators to fail or otherwise destroy their lives. How else do they address their own frustrations with their own life and lack mentality? When consuming content, many confuse a desire for authenticity and a desire for a lack of competition. If you don't believe me, follow their advice and share your intimate stories. It won't be long before your humbling details are later used against you in some righteous critique, either by trolls or some other unsavory horde. From where I've always stood, overexposing yourself online has only positioned people on the front line of public ridicule. There's a reason the term rage bait has become popularized, and it's because people are constantly ready to unleash their criticism, and the internet has become a safe space for that. Social media accounts dedicated to retelling scandalous stories and skits of deplorable situations that make you question what's real flood algorithms, knowing that people are primarily interested in what they can critique. People want to have a say on why they would do something differently or better. According to them, they might not even be in your situation at all. Don't even get me started on the hate watching of bougie influencers and then leaving them terrible comments. Regardless, it's all based in a nasty habit of preferring to feed off of negativity. At the end of the day, presenting yourself intentionally online should not make you unrelatable, and you shouldn't have to share your personal business for your content to have value. To request or expect this from creators is parasocial in nature and revealing that many only crave content to fill their own voids. The more people are willing to share without discernment, the easier it is for an audience to either see themselves on equal footing or elevate themselves above the creator being exposed. It reminds me of how an abuser may know more about you than you know about them as a means of leverage. Ultimately, the more a creator reveals about themselves, the less intentional they seem, and the audience is less likely to feel called to some action to improve themselves. This woman's advice to appear less polished and more real is simply a part of a larger narrative that is aiming to set people up to be ridiculed for entertainment. Like I mentioned before, with the current state of the economy and the internet, it feels alarming to essentially prey on aspiring creators' desperation for monetization. More and more people, especially teenagers, are desperate to be seen, and they are in front of the camera, live streaming, commentating, retelling, posing as NPCs, and otherwise exposing themselves to thousands upon millions of strangers for clicks. I can't necessarily fault them, as they are doing it in hopes that it can take them to a higher place in life. However, I believe we will continue to see the lengths people are willing to go for virality. Creator to creator, it is up to us to determine what we are willing to share, and being willing to hold things back is what allows us to control our own narratives. If we succumb to this idea that all publicity is good publicity, or that we need to put our entire selves online in order to gain a following, we may find that it blows up in our face and we regret it. Even deeper than the permanence of the digital footprint, we should all be considering who we truly are and how we shape our legacy. What are we sharing with the world, and how do we want to be remembered? That will be our identity, no matter what we may wish otherwise. We control our narratives by what we choose to expose. The more you share unnecessarily, the more vulnerable you are, and ultimately, you become a liability to yourself.